Welcome to an hour of power. I am Keith Anthony Blanchard, spiritual teacher, musician, author of the best-selling book Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, and your host of Center of Light. Let's dive in. Welcome to Center of Light on this beautiful Tuesday night. Are you pushing forth? I'm pushing forth. Center of Light Radio is back. Center of Light is back, and I'm pushing really hard, but very soft and subtle. There's a lot of power in paradox. Are you living in paradox? What is in there? Have you ever explored it? It's Pandora's box. You got to be clear, my friend, my dear. You got to be clear. We're in the age of clarity. Or not. There's the gray area. There really isn't. The door is wide open. What you choose, conscious or not, belongs to you. Or you will at least get it, but what really belongs to you is something deeper than that. It's your birthright. Not being affected by the world, but being infected with the universe. Are you infected with the universe? I am. Ha! I am. Or you. Center of Light Radio. Tonight my guest is Rhys Campion, and when he's speaking about her best-selling, number one best-selling book, went bestseller in one day, Energy Healing for Empaths. So let's get right down to Center of Light Radio. If you would share this everywhere, why not? I do this pro bono. I love what I do. Do you love what you do? Another very important question. Do you love what you do? Surrender to it, and everything that is your birthright will naturally just simply appear, just like that. Just like that. Let me tell you about my guest tonight on Center of Light Radio. Also, before I do that, my new release, Homecoming: Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, was released July 31st. Bestseller. I also have Lavender Soul CDs that you just heard, the music to the intro, for sale. I was selling them $20 per disc. We had 3 albums, and now I'm selling them all 3 for $20. Just moving them from our heart to yours. And finally, if everyone knows me by my other books, but not many people know me by my children's book series modeled after my now 15-and-a-half-year-old son, then 6-year-old, Eden Sky Wonders Why. It was all done in pencil. It's just truly phenomenal. It's really what my son looks like if you knew my son. Hence the single fatherness, raising a son with all these big questions. Dad, what about this and what about that? Those questions that parents don't really feel comfortable answering. So if you look at this page, you see a page of Eden Sky at 6 years old, and he has a question mark on his chest. But when he looks at the reflection of himself, it's an exclamation point. So you get the idea of the book. He asks big questions, he gets big answers. Let me tell you about my guest today on Center of Light, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Center of Light. Rhys Campion is the author of the number one best-selling books, let me move some things out the way. The Art of Psychic Reiki and Energy Healing for Empaths. She is a psychic counselor and Reiki master teacher with over 25 years of experience. Lisa has been teaching Reiki for over 20 years and has trained over 1,000 people in Reiki and has done over 15,000 individual sessions. She is also the host of the radio show and podcast, The Miracle of Healing. I think I was recently on that show for some big thing that she's doing, and I'm grateful she asked me. On Empower Radio, she specializes in training emerging psychics, I thought it was physics, emerging psychics, empaths, and healers, to that they can fully step into their gifts. Do what you love. Since the world needs all the healers that it can get. I just posted, or I'm posting now again, the link in this forum to more about Lisa. Go stomp all over her page, make a big old stank, let her know you exist. Welcome to Center of Light Radio. Lisa.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's so good to be here. I'm so happy to see you today.
I'm jealous in a good way. Congrats on all this success that you're having in something well-deserved, because you're doing what you love. And you know as well as I do, when you do what you love, it's like extra gravy on your biscuit.
It is, totally. Yeah.
What's happening in Lisa's world? What's happening in your world, baby?
Well, book launch day, and that's always a trip. I say it's sort of like getting shot out of a cannon, where you really sort of reach this velocity and bring out. It's like a birthday. Like you something is born that you've been working on for a long time, and it's for me it's a 2-year process of writing the book and editing the book and running it all through what the publishers do for their side of it. So it's this long kind of solitary, angst-ridden process that, but it's very creative and joyful in a creative way at times. And today is the day that this gets launched out into the world, which is really cool and really trippy and kind of the culmination of a lot of hard work that finally gets solid in the world.
You and I were talking in the radio green room. And if any of you actually knew what host and guest talk about in the green room, you would always want to be in one. I'm with you. You and I were talking in the green room about that feeling. That I have a chapter in Homecoming called That Feeling. What is that feeling? That feeling that we have when the UPS guy says, package for Keith Blanchard, Lisa Campion, and you go, oh my God. You don't know what to do it yourself, and you take the razor blade or whatever you can find that's sharp enough to cut the mailing tape, the box tape, and you open it up and you see, you brought up a minute ago, that baby. It's like a new birth. What does that feeling feel like to you when you see all that hard work and the validation of where you're coming from and where you're going? How does it feel?
It's intense, So here's my copy of one of my copies of the book, and I just got it a couple of days ago. So there are people out there that have got it way before I did, and I had this sort of jealousy. One of my friends said, "I've got your book," and I'm like, "I don't even have my book. How do you have my book?" And it's like having somebody else hold the baby before you get a chance to. But I think it's sort of that Christmas morning feeling, where you open up the box and what's in the box is Christmas morning, and somehow it's that. For me, like real intense joy and love, and sort of like I'm proud of myself too, because it's a lot. It's real hard. It's real hard to do, and you're an author too, and an artist and a creator, and it takes effort to kind of focus that, and then when it's finally real, so it exists in the real world. There's this like joyful birth kind of feeling.
A lot of spiritualists have an issue with feeling proud in the right context, happy for oneself, because they think it's about being full of oneself. That's exactly what it's about. It's about being full in yourself with your passion, your love. I don't have an issue whatsoever by saying, congratulations to myself. If we can never really step forward until we take that step of, wow, I simply do good work. I do good things in this world. Let's dive right in. What many people hear the word empath. What is an empath? Give it to me in your terms.
Sure. So empaths are those people that are so sensitive. Sometimes we call them psychic sponges, and they really are born this way, and they have the ability to feel what other people are feeling. But it's not just like psychological sympathy, like where you see somebody who's having a feeling and you're like, oh, I feel sorry for them. That's different. An empath feels that person's feelings as if it's their feeling. So if I sit down next to somebody who's sad, I feel sad, and I might not know why, and so we sponge up the energy, the thoughts, the physical vibrations, the physical sensations of other people. And until you know what it's for, that can seem like a horrible idea. Like, why do we do this? We can suffer a lot with feeling like we just we don't know we don't know what it's for, why we have that. The world is full of miserable people, and then we end up feeling their misery, so it can feel like really burdensome and really difficult until you understand that behind that is an incredible gift.
How does one find, I'm sitting next to John Doe or Jill Doe, and I've been doing this for years, and I get on the bus and I get on the plane and I start feeling all these weird feelings. How does one begin to discern, it's almost as if you have to be in the new age or the spiritual movement to realize this is not part of you. This is somebody else. How does one begin to figure that conundrum out?
Well, I figured it out when I was probably 17, 18 years old, and it was way back in the day, like this was in the early 80s. And there was no one having this conversation. There was no even word about empath at all. And I had this experience, Keith, of like, while I was at college, big state school here in Massachusetts, and I walked into this party and sat down next to this guy. He was having a bad day. He was crying into his beer and he was telling me all about it. And I've been feeling good. I was going to a party. I was in college. It was Friday night. I was all good. And then 5 minutes after sitting next to this guy, I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm like suddenly suicidally depressed. I'm crazy. There's something totally not right with me. I actually have to get up and leave the party. So I got up and I walked outside. It was a house party. And it was like fate, or my spirit guides turned my head and made me look through the window and see the guy still on the couch. And now that I had got some distance from him, I felt fine. I felt like myself again, and in that moment I had this realization that what I was feeling wasn't me, that I was totally 100% feeling.
How did you explain that to yourself? Like, I mean, of
I,
course
I
you
just
realize that that's not me, but how did you process that? Did you call it a word? Did you hear the word before? What?
I just said I'm really sensitive. Like I'm really sensitive. I'm really I'm picking this stuff up. And that was also the 80s, so it was sort of the dawn of the new age, and I like got some good teaching. I got some people that helped me. I worked with a psychic healer who helped me get some skills around how to manage my energy, because this is the thing that all empaths have to do. We have to learn these fundamental energy management skills: grounding, shielding, protecting, so we can be in the world. And we're always called to be in the world because basically we're healers, we're helpers, we're caregivers. We're often introverts, so sometimes we need to work one-on-one with people, but we're not meant to hide from the world and arrange our lives in a way that leaves us the minimum amount of exposure to other people, which is what a lot of us end up doing until we learn these fundamental skills, which is sort of what my book is about. That way we can figure out how to engage in the world in a really powerful way and do the work that I think we're like God's healing army, or God, the wing of divine beings here that are meant to help and heal other people. And the world needs us, man. We got to get on our game so we can go out and do that.
Does it seem to be a commonality that people, empaths that we were speaking about, like you said, they are healers and you should be out there? Does it seem to be a commonality that the opposite, they actually more reserved versus
Yeah.
being what they are?
Truth. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times until they learn how to really manage it, they hide. They're hiding in their house. They don't, they're sort of minimizing their interaction with people. And it creates a kind of depression actually in empaths, who we know we're for something. We know we came here to help. We really, really, really care. We have big, compassionate hearts. We care deeply about people. And it came, like I worked with this lady not too long ago who was a very talented healer. She was a Reiki healer, and she really wanted to work um, doing hospice work, and she was brilliant at it. She learned Reiki. She would go in and she would work with people that were dying. And she came to me once and said, "I'm gonna have to stop. Like I really love doing this, but I'm sick. I'm tired. After somebody passes away, I'm trashed for like a week or two. I can't get off my couch. My husband's ready to divorce me. Like I've got to stop." And I thought that was so sad. It was so tragic that the world would lose this incredible healer because she didn't know what she needed to know to, these basic things all empaths need: grounding, healing, protecting. Once she had that toolkit, she could go back to what she was meant to do, back to being this incredible healer that she is, saving the world, doing this beautiful hospice work, and not have it, take a bite out of her so much that she was ready to quit.
Is there a common reason why empaths are withdrawn or stay in the house, or is there a common denominator for most, or is it just? I'm sure it is different for many, but is there one in particular that is the reason?
I think there's a lot of anxiety that happens, and sometimes empaths feel like it's social anxiety. They mistakenly believe that they have social anxiety, so they don't like people. They can't, situations where there's crowds or lots of people in a single space is very stressful for an empath, and I think it's anxiety. That's probably at the bottom of a lot of the what can really hamstring us, what can really put us on a bad foot and make us feel like this is a curse we wish we didn't have. But also depression and addiction are very strong in empaths too. Depression comes from when we feel like we're not fulfilling our life purpose, and we're not living a full life. And addictions happen because I think some empaths learn tendencies to shut down their emotions, to shut down their sensitivity, shut down their sensitivity to other people in general. And with all of the empaths that I've worked with, it's one of those three, or all of or all of those things together that that need to be worked through. Yeah.
I see it now. I don't know why I didn't see it. I see it, which is if they don't know that they're empathic and they just feel this social anxiety because every time they go near people, they're feeling all this weird stuff. So until
Right.
you understand what this is and why this is happening and it doesn't belong to you, I don't feel like going out today. Y'all
Why
go
would you?
without me. I don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Why
So
would you?
what
Or
do
like,
they? Go ahead, darling.
like what? And then if you, especially if you felt something like this client of mine did, my student, like called to work in a hospital, which is like, go. It's like the hardest place for an empath to go because it's so stressful. It's full of miserable people who are sick and dying and stressed out. That it puts you right in the line of fire. So there's this catch-22. We're always called into the line of fire because that's the work we're meant to do, and at the same time, that sort of kicks our butts.
It's almost that you cannot be in the line of fire because you're so sensitive that no matter what you do, you're taking anything in.
That's right.
How does one who has this scenario, who's not aware of one, the title, as to why it was my first question to you, what it is laid out, how does one begin to go about moving into this experience? Is it kind of a shake off kind of thing? Is it just simple intention with the shake off kind of thing? Is it other techniques or methods you would like to offer? How one can begin to find balance and something that can just seem to
Yeah,
knock you off your
it's
feet?
so burdensome, and so I think the first step is acceptance. That we really need to learn to accept this about our and um just this is who we are, and that there's good things about it. It's really a gift. Once we kind of accept that, then there's two or three really fundamental energy management skills that we have to have. We need to learn how to ground ourselves, which means people talk a lot about being grounded. But what does that really mean? Like, it's a word people fling around a lot. But my definition of it means that you're in the moment, in the here and now. You're connected to your body and you're connected to the planet. And empaths tend to be not grounded and spacey a lot of times. Like if we're a psychic sponge and our sponge gets full, we hit something called empathic overload, and that it's just this sort of collapsed, emotionally overwhelmed state that empaths get into. It's like 20 minutes into the box store, 20 minutes into Walmart or Home Depot, it will blow the empath circuit, and you're like, why am I here? What did I come here for? Like, I'm just gonna like abandon my shopping cart in the back of Walmart and run out the store, which I have to honestly confess to you that I've done before. Eek. And in order to avoid that empathic overload, we need to be grounded. We need to learn how to clear the energy we pick up from other people. So if we're a sponge, we need to learn how to squeeze the sponge and release that energy we pick up. And then we need to learn how to shield ourselves so we're not so spongy, so we're more inside of a bubble. And because I'm an energy worker and have been for so long, I see the energy fields of people. I see what's going on, and I have just noticed over and over again that empaths have this sponge.
Do
So
you see
once
with these or do you see with these? Or it's a
both,
combination of both?
actually, yeah, it's kind
All
of
right.
both for me. Yeah, it's both. And once we're in our bubble and we are connected to the earth and we're in our body and we know how to squeeze the sponge, we can function in the world pretty much any way that we want to. And that's amazing. That's powerful. That's when things get good.
What is this overwhelming feeling that empaths feel the need to put others before themselves?
I mean, I think it's our nature. It's sort of constitutional to us. On the light side of thing, on the light side of it, it's our soul's mission to do the work of a healer. On the shadow side of it, it can be this idea that we don't have any value unless we're serving or giving to others, that somehow we're selfish. So we have like empaths on one side of a continuum and narcissists on the other side of the continuum, and so empaths are the givers and narcissists are the takers. And we feel like we don't have a right to be here unless we're in the giving position. And we don't are we're generally not very good at boundaries. So we have a hard time saying no. We can really, really feel like this is a common scenario for empaths. Let's say your friend comes over and your friend's kind of a mess, and you can feel the deep pain that your friend is in. And even though you're busy and you have things to do, you're like, oh, I can feel how terrible you feel. And I love you so much. So I'm going to sacrifice what I was going to do and be here with you instead. It's just without even thinking that about it until you learn how to set boundaries, until you learn to consider, whether you really want to do those things. It's just our natural inclination to be that way. And I think it's quite surprising to us that other people aren't that way.
Would it be of benefit for an empath to recognize that, one, for example, the reflection, the reason they feel so deeply but someone putting them before themselves, instead of seeing, would it help basically for them to see that they actually care so much,
Yeah.
versus seeing this need, instead of this person is certain that I have this level of depth in me of feeling that simply just cares, and sort of leave it there and refine that process versus going outside of that and using this model as a way of grabbing hold of it.
Yeah, that's great. And that's part of the accepting piece. I think that's important for all of us to do. That we need to accept we're kind of made out of love. We're super compassionate. We're deeply caring people. And it's not very cool to be that way in the world right now. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's sort of like not in vogue in the moment to be so caring, to be so kind. So empaths often feel like they're stupid, or they're vulnerable, they're too nice, like, oh, I'm just a pushover. But I really think it's important to remember, like, love is the most powerful force in the universe, and we carry an extra amount of that for people. Empathic people, if empathic people were in charge of the world, which they never would do because they're not geared to take that like leadership role, but if they did, there'd be no war, there'd be no people going hungry we'd be living from our hearts, we'd be living in this deep state of compassion for each other, taking care of each other, which I see, like, I wish there were more of us in charge, or more of us around, because the world would be a better place, truthfully.
I know some empaths that if they turned on that power deliberately and consciously and projected that stuff out, heads would melt.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I have some of that, but it's not my first go-to. I mean, if I take the time to stop this intellect, that's me. I am all about intellect and reasoning and processing, and I have a feeling base, a very deep feeling base, but it's not my first go-to. I as well, if I walk into a room and hanging out with friends and we're at a bar, and I let all that spiritual shit go. I just want to be Keith in the bar with my friends hanging out. But one thing that I do is when I walk into a room, let's say I'm walking into TJ Mulligan's on Kirby, I'm walking through the threshold of the door. I literally go inside. I'm here. It's not about me. I'm here. I say, my energy is made known, and I become an influencer of the room. Sounds bold, but it is true. I've seen the effect that it has by the people that are drawn to me or that I attract, and vice versa, and our conversations or validation of such. But when I am at a group of people and some negative things are being said, instead of, I may have some of that, but that's a sign that I need to become conscious. And when I become conscious, I begin to use my energy, my feeling base of something that feels good. And one thing I do, Lisa, as I find the most, way of describing it, negative person at the table. That's the one doing this stuff. And I'll start a dialogue with them, and I'll find something that I can hyperfix and hyperfocus on that is very beautiful about that person. Be it a cologne, I get a whiff of the girl or the guy, hey, that's a good cologne there, dude. Or a pendant around their neck. the way they talk if they're from another country and have a musical sound to them, whatever it is that just really excites me. And I begin to massage that quality of that person. And what it does, it brings up a feeling base in me of same as what an empath has naturally. And the more I use that as a stargate to go into the negative person, I literally see them change their dialogue and I see some form of God walk right of that out of them in front of my eyes.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I think you have more of like a warrior personality, like the spirit, the spiritual, the spiritual warrior. Got for sure. The Jedi, like that's you. And all that charisma you're talking about, and all that leadership skill that you can do, like that's just straight up warrior stuff, and that's like a different life purpose in a way than what the empaths do. Empaths are in that same scenario, walking into a bar. They're gonna find a quiet corner where there's not a lot of other people, and they're going to look around and see like the one sad lonely person who's by themselves crying into their beer, and that's the person they're going to go talk to, because it we can't help it. It's like the healer. And even if we're not trying to do that, even if we're thinking we're minding our own business, we're going to be that. You can be wandering around in the supermarket and that little old lady's going to come up to you and tell you her whole life story because she's lonely and she needs help, because people can feel the quality of compassion and healership that we carry with us everywhere we go. And I think that's I mean, we all have different life purposes and all different things that we're for. But I love the way that you do that, Keith. That's so cool that you're. And I would also wonder that when you find something really good, not about that person to sort of shine up a little bit, not only does it kick in your empath, your sensitivity, but it probably also changes the vibration of that person so that they're feeling all more loved, more buttered up, more appreciated, and
And they
that,
don't even know it.
yeah, and they stop slinging around the negativity at that point, don't they?
And the whole table feels it, and the whole room feels it. I have my mentor, which I miss dearly. He's in what's the place in England with Peter, not Peter Pan, Robin Hood, Nottingham, whatever. He's over there, and I've been missing him like crazy. He was this kind of guy. If you go into unconsciousness, he will, and he'll check you. And he doesn't have to literally tap you. You could be sitting at that table that I described just a minute ago, and he will just be sitting there. And people start fidgeting. They start becoming uncomfortable because he's so illumined and he's so in the moment that if you're speaking with him and you're leaning in and he's definitely leaning in because he wants to be with you. If you say something unconscious, he will have this look on his face that will immediately bring up this experience in the other person, and they get really fidgety and really uncomfortable. Speaking uncomfortable, people like dark stuff. I like dark stuff. Really, I do. I'm a human. I like going to the amusement park, so I'm going to go on the dark stuff. I'm going to go on the roller coaster instead of the Ferris wheel, which is peaceful. But people like charge. People like experience. They like bang. They like drama. What are energy vampires? Do they exist? How they appear? I mean, what is all this about energy vampires and what do they want?
Yeah, well, great conversation. Great question. So, energy vampires are definitely the roller coaster and the amusement ride. The empath is definitely going on the Ferris wheel, by the way, and to be all peaceful. But energy vampires are those people that just seem to suck the life out of you. That are draining to be around. There's a couple of different kinds of energy vampires. I think there's the ones that we think about the most these days that are like the super predatory vampires that are like the real con artists, the real dangerous psychopathic type people who will target, and usually they'll often target an empath. They consider other people as like an energy source, like a battery, where you could become the money, the time, the attention, the gas in your car and the food in your fridge become this sort of resources that this other person's going to consume. So they're sort of parasitic, and they often do find themselves, there's narcissists is another way, but I'm talking about extreme, like psychopath type people. That's one kind of energy vampire, and I'm sure we've all encountered people like that. You just
I
turn
was
on.
one.
Were you? No way.
Back when.
You were before
Well,
you had
I'm sure we all carry a little bit of that around. I mean, we do everything we can. We are steadfast and sincere in our spiritual development. And until we get to the apex of everything, I'm sure that somewhere inside that we all have a little bit. But yeah, back in the day, I was.
Wow, that's so interesting. Empaths really don't. Empaths really don't have that part of them. They can be energy draining in a different way, but they don't have that sort of predatory kind of thing. But that's because you're a warrior, Keith. Like you have that until you purified your warrior into the spiritual warrior, you would have had the shadow side of the warrior, which would have been more out for what you can get, like what's in it for me kind of, which is, it's not bad. We all need a healthy amount of that, so like psychologists talk about healthy narcissism, which is just basically having good self-esteem and feeling like you're worthy and deserving of having what you want. And they're also a different kind of energy vampire that was more common, and that's like the victim vampire. And these are people who get like really attached to their, and we all have bad things that happen to us. We've all have trauma. We've all been through shit. We all have had difficulties for sure. But the victim vampire learns how to get energy from holding on to their story and kind of, well, I can't do this, and will you do it for me? And they get sort of traction out of it. And when we're around them, they're very drawn to empaths. And when we're around them, we feel sorry for them. We need to help them. We need to take care of them in some way. But they're the friends that call you on the phone, complain for an hour, never ask you how you're doing, talk about the same thing over and over again, don't take your advice, are addicted to trauma.
I can't do it, Lisa. I can't do it. I feel, I'll listen. No, I will hear. I'll listen until I have to hear. And when I have to hear, it becomes an effort to simply hear. And I find an excuse, a valid reason, an honest reason for me to say, I have to jet. I can't do it. Because the empath in me or the not interested in me, maybe they're the same, maybe there's some difference. I can't listen to someone jawing on and repeating themselves about the same nonsensical unconscious drama. I can't. I have to literally excuse myself.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you found a really good way to set a boundary. Like that would be like the no, thank you, I'm done with this. That's the boundary that that empaths have a really hard time with it. Like you've seemed to have found a natural way to do it. But that's really, really, really hard for people who are consider themselves empaths. They don't have an inner ability to do that. They have to learn, and it's hard and painful for them to learn. So I'm glad you figured out how to have a boundary, but most people don't.
I did a show, I did a presentation, Lisa, recently on, everyone, my name is Keith Anthony Blanchard. Tonight, Center of Light Radio is back. I'm going to be doing this for a while. Instead of 2 days a week, I'm going to pull back to 1 day a week. I love my presentations beyond everything. I love being with you one-on-one, but I miss Center of Light Radio. And so tonight, my guest is Miss Lisa Campion. We're speaking about her one-day-old best-selling #1 book, Energy Healing for Empaths. I forgot. I lost my train of thought. Take us where we're going next.
I think you were talking about boundaries and how...
Boundaries. I did a presentation recently on boundaries, and it was called Boundaries. Boundaries for me are a mental construct because it has nothing to do with physicality, and it will eventually manifest in a physical way. But it's about saying what I will and will not allow in this said boundary, because the boundary is not an actual line drawn in the sand. It's a line drawn in the mind that says, I am not going to allow this into my experience. There's this lady by the name of Anna Bradenbach. Many people may know her by, some years ago, there was a video that flowed through the Facebook or the social media streams of this lady who talked animal whisper to this black leopard by the name of Diablo from Australia. And she is truly the real deal.
Wow.
And she says, I can go swimming in the ocean with great white sharks, a frenzy of them, and I will not be touched. And what she says is, if I go into the ocean with the intention to protect myself, I'm bringing those things. We can use this analogously in life as to why we set boundaries with people, and I understand it. But when I go into the ocean to protect myself from these things, instead of I'm trying to keep you out, because I'm going to bring those very things to the very wall of my said boundary. And sometimes these creatures, people, experiences can be so slick they can slide in and you still have the experience. But what Anna Brainback suggests is my boundary is not I'm going to protect myself. My boundary is peace, and under that umbrella, everything else is. So my boundary is peace. I am just simply this orb of peace. So nothing else can get in. What are your thoughts about that approach?
I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic, really strong spiritual way to set a boundary. And like when we have that energy bubble around us, when we're radiating light through us, through the light of our own soul, things can't get in, right? And I think that's a great way to start. And for when I teach boundaries to people, I teach two ways. One of them is to deal with things on the energetic level, like you were just saying. And the other way is to deal with things on a practical level, which is what you also were saying when you said no. So a lot of times when I work with empaths, they're like, what is even a boundary, Lisa? Like, what is it? And I'm like, it's all the different ways we say no. That's how the simplest way to break it down. Like saying no to somebody else is saying yes to yourself. And that's very hard for us because we have a lot of self-judgment. We don't feel like we're worth anything if we're not giving, right? So we have to learn. It feels so mean to say no. It feels so like hard when you're really feeling somebody else's pain to say no, you know? And so part of it is, I would say 50% of boundaries is the word no. It's real simple. It's a lot of nice ways to say that. No, thank you is my personal favorite. But and the other 50% is what you were talking about, is holding a strong energy field, you know, and allowing your own inner light to radiate out of that energy field. When you're doing that, it's like turning the faucet on. When the faucet's on, nothing can get up the faucet, right?
Very well said. Yeah, exactly. Oh, so you're the next question. I have a question. In fact, this is one of my burning questions. It's one of yours, and I love it. It says, empaths have special challenges in our romantic relationships. What are they, and how might an empath overcome them? Because I've been a part of this dance.
Yeah, sure. I mean, empaths do. I mean, I guess we all have challenges in our romantic relationships. It's one of our ways that we're the most challenged in the world, and we have the most potential to grow in our life, to spiritually evolve and personally evolve. Is relationships are like this magical crucible where all of our stuff gets triggered, and then we have an opportunity to work through it. It's beautiful and painful. And empaths have a tendency, because we're overgiving, because we are so compassionate, to be codependent in our relationships. So if you're an empath, I really recommend that you look up and read some books around codependency. And that codependency is basically you're not okay unless your person's okay. Like, I'm not okay unless you're okay. And that can kind of create this enmeshment between people where we can really get too far into somebody else's business instead of sitting back and staying in our own self, and then respecting that that person is going through whatever they're going through. And so we have to make sure we're not overgiving, that we're not being drained by our partners, that we're not codependent in relationships. And empaths are often, and I really think there are just as many male empaths as there are female, by the way. People tend to think it's only empathic, but I don't think that's true at all. I think there are just as many men empaths as there are women. So whoever the empath is in the relationship may be really giving so much, and needing to say no. Like, again, how do we say no? How do we not get sucked dry by that person? How do we not enter too much into their space and try to fix them, like whamming them all up so they're okay?
Because empaths feel so deeply when it comes to relationship, they always, like you said, they always feel that if they don't emote, perform their mission, their purpose, why they were born, they feel a certain way. But when they do, is it common that something is always expected in return? In other words, I did this for you. Where's mine? Because usually, let's use a sexual relationship. When someone, you can go out with someone and say, this is a one night we hanging out and it just happens. The next morning, somebody has feelings. In the same way, when an empath, guy or girl, feels so deeply and they've done so many things for you because it makes them feel good to do said things, is it common that they expect certain things in return?
I think so. And I mean, I would say that there are many empaths who give with the hope of receiving. Do you know what I mean? Like if I give you this, it's sort of like the golden rule, which I don't think ever works in relationships very well. Like I'm going to give to you what I want to receive in return. And then it's kind of a sticky, like it's kind of there's agendas inside of it that create complications in our relationships, right? And it's super interesting, Keith, that you brought up sexuality too, because I think especially in terms of our romantic relationships, there's energetic entanglements we have with our lovers that create more difficulties in our non-romantic relationships, where we literally merge I have a whole chapter of this in my book around empaths and sexuality. I have one chapter called Empaths and Love and the other chapter called Empaths and Sexuality, because it's super important to understand what happens on an energetic level when we literally merge energy with the other person. The empath can absorb even more energy than normal during lovemaking or sexual encounter with somebody. So we have to be very careful about those things, and we have more careful. And we have to know how to energetically disentangle ourselves so we're not staying in that enmeshed state with our people.
Could you give us an overview, synopsis, the back cover of your book? What is this beautiful, brand new #1 bestseller that happened in less than 24 hours? What would be an overview, trailer of this powerful book?
Oh, thank you. That's great. I think it's really about helping empaths understand how, first of all, the nature of themselves, looking at things from the level of the soul. So we have a sort of spiritual context for understanding what our gifts are, and then helping us work through these energy management practices so we have a good foundation to stand on energetically, and working through the boundaries so we can set boundaries in even our most difficult relationships. Sometimes we have relationships we can't get away from, your boss or your kid or your parent, or people who really, really challenge you. And so we need to get skilled in handling tricky relationships, the ones that we can't run away from. And then I think the last part of the book is about embracing the superpowers of being an empath, understanding that our emotional nature is actually a superpower when we learn how to accept that and how to manage our feelings on a daily level, so we're not feeling constantly flooded and swamped by our emotional states. We're very super emotional, empaths always are, and we have the added burden of other people's emotions on top of our own already emotional overload. We can be an emotional hot mess, Keith, until we learn how to handle ourselves like an emotional ninja, which is really what we have to do.
I love the word hot mess and I love emotional ninja. Wow, that's fantastic. Let me ask you this. So everyone, my guest tonight is Lisa Campion, and we're speaking about her brand new bestseller, Energy Healing for Empaths. So Lisa Campion wakes up in the morning. Do I dare tread? I will. Lisa Campion wakes up in the morning. Of course, she's doing her Facebook social media posting about her work. She's a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal pod show host, phenomenal guest, and all of these wonderful things. Now, Lisa Campion wakes up in the morning. Other than doing those daily tasks, what does Lisa Campion like other than that? Because when I sit in this chair, people ask me the same question. I'll say, well, there is nothing else. This is what I do. But I do have some other things. Could you share with us some part of your personal, just being Lisa Campion? Help us feel like you. Help us be empathic towards you. What do you do for fun?
Well, I do a lot of actually meditation in the morning. So I have like my own meditation process that I do that sort of helps me manage my own inner state. So I find if I get myself into the right vibration, so I meditate, I do my spiritual practices, and to elevate my frequency to a higher level, then I can get through my day on a much better basis. But truthfully, I'm sort of a geeky kind of nerd. I live alone. I have a dog. I walk my dog. I like to garden. I'm sort of a quiet, introverted. I live way out in the boonies here, and that's really
Are
given
you
me a lot
introverted
of time
because
to
you're out in
think.
the? Are you introverted because you're out in the boonies, or are you introverted because you're that empath that we talked about earlier that doesn't want to go out?
Both, man, both. It's like I live in the
I'm
country,
playing
and
with
that
you.
suits me. That suits me down to the T. So I'm kind of like a quiet, geeky kind of, nerdy kind of person, actually. When I'm not doing all that, but I do care. I do a lot of spiritual practice. I know you do too. You
What do
know,
you see for yourself in 5 years? Not that's important. I mean, and you know what? I'm not going to explain myself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm super motivated and passionate about helping other psychics, healers, and empaths fully step into their gifts. I think there's more and more sensitives and psychics coming onto the planet. I think healers, people that have the soul of the healer, are waking up to their calling and wanting to train and develop that. So I love these days mentoring people, really closely helping them see what their potential is as a healer, psychic, or an empath, reach their potential through the books and the training programs that I have. And um, and really, I would like to train an army of healers, Keith, to go out into the world.
I
And
love that.
you know,
I want to
and
train an army of healers.
I do, and I'm doing it. That's what I want to do. It's what I feel so passionate, because I didn't have any help when I was learning this stuff back in the day. There were no psychics on TV. There were no New Age bookstores. There was none of that. I had to learn everything School of Hard Knocks the hard way, and I made every single mistake in the book and made up a whole other book of mistakes. And if I can help somebody not have to suffer and do it the hard way, that like I did, that's a really good day for me. And then if I can get somebody so, polished up and ready to go save the world, that's a good day for me.
You and I are definitely in the same boat in that regard. I've been paddling. I got tired. You picked up the paddle and you started paddling. I am in the same boat. When I was hurting, that 2 years of the dark night of the soul, I had nothing. I had no one. And then Mike, the guy I told you earlier that went,
Right.
he gave me some secrets. And he said, you don't have to believe a word I'm saying. Just apply it to your life and watch what happens. If he would have told me to eat dog shit, I wanted peace so bad, I would have found as many as I could.
Yeah.
But in that regard, I love people. I want to offer as a gesture, as it should be, that which was given to me so freely when I needed something. And it was offered to me, and it filled me so much inside. Now I can't be a bastard. I can't be stingy, and I can't hoard it because it doesn't belong to me.
Mm,
It does not belong to me. It was
yeah.
given to me as a raft to ride the river of consciousness. And so I'm now obligated for the rest of my life, and there's no way out of this for me, which I'm happy about because it brings me joy to be with people. That
Yeah.
simply to bring, I love seeing that smile. I love seeing, I love what I've noticed about what I do, and it took me a while to get used to it, is that when people come into my experience, be it as a teacher and their student in this regard, they'll hang out for 4, 5, 6 months, and I don't see them again. I love it. It's like I've done what I had to do,
Wow.
and but I do selfishly miss them, and I want to contact them. And when I do finally contact them, or they come contact me because of social media, the algorithm, and when we do come back together, I see such a change, not because they're broken,
Mm,
a beautiful human being that is not because of me, but because of everything that happened since the last time I saw them. It is so rewarding and fulfilling. I I thirst on going
yeah.
before it.
I get it. I mean, me too. Like, I mean, I think you and I are working in slightly different spaces. You're like a catalyst for people's consciousness. Like you have that mystical experiences that happen to you that you brought in, and now your being with people catalyzes them into consciousness. like sparks them awake, right? And allows them to shift their perception into these other realms of consciousness that you live in, that you swim in, and my thing is more of a healer. So I help people work through the broken places, the wounded places, the stuck places, the traumatized places, so they can feel whole on the inside. And really then, and healers, like the wounded healers, like healers are usually a pretty mashed up group of people. We have to work through our own issues. And then in the working of that, we then have something to help, like, oh, I went through that. Now I can help you because I've been there, I've done that. And so a lot of healers have sort of the wounded healer archetype, where we have to fix our own selves before we're of use to other people. You have that like catalyzing spark of consciousness that when people get around you, it sparks them awake.
You got another book in the works?
Yeah,
Of course
always.
you do.
Of course. It's so funny when you have a book, because I love the creative process of writing, and now I'm in the stage of like the marketing and the publicity of it, and I'm like already in love with the next book that I'm doing. I think that's how it is for us writers. And I'm working actually on a deck of cards, like an oracle. It's sort of like an oracle deck, but its goal is to be helping healers, Reiki people, energy healers, psychics do some like diagnostics for their client. So if you're a Reiki practitioner and you're working on somebody, you might pull a card to be like, where's the block? What's the problem here? And then you would pull another card to find the solution of what you're going to do to help them, as a tool for healers who want to expand their ability to know what's going on with their clients.
So this is not just like a Lisa Campion version of a tarot deck. I'm going to pull a card.
No,
It may have that effect in some way.
That's
Why
right.
did the subconscious mind arrange cards in such a way to where I pulled this
Yes.
one? I get that. But it's actually a lesson that says, let's look at this thing as to why it was pulled, and really use this opportunity of said pulled card to investigate a scenario for someone who may be being read, if you will. Yeah?
Right. Yeah, almost like a diagnostic tool.
Beautiful.
know,
You
for
did
he-
say tool. Fantastic.
Yeah, diagnostic tool for healers and psychics who want more information. Like you're in a Reiki session and this happens to all Reiki or healer type psychic healers, where you hit something where you're like, I don't know what this is. I can feel this block. There's something gnarly here. I don't know what it is. I got nothing. And this is where you would pull the card and be like, oh, it's a past life. It's a past life issue, or it's a blocked chakra, or it's trauma that needs to be cleaned up. And then, okay, now I know what it is. What do I got to do to clear it? And then you would pull a different card that would tell you what needs to be done to release it. I think it'll be really, really cool, very practical for people that are working in my industry.
You let me know. We'll get you back on anytime you're welcome here. Let me ask you this. I lost my train of thought. I guess I need some Geritol. I don't know where I'm going. So, when you do what you do, as well as you do it, or the people that you're working with, do they give you secrets, even obviously they do, further into what you need to do better? Or, in other words, out of all these years that you've been doing what you do, are you seeing new cases and new studies and new ideas of, wow, I never saw that before in my 25 plus years of being?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, first of all, I think we're evolving, so that we're the new people that are coming onto a planet are bringing a whole different set of issues and things to work through. And even though I've done thousands of sessions, I have a lot of clinical experience as a healer, I do it's an interesting job being a psychic, really, so I often get things where I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This can't, like, somebody will tell me a story of what they've been through, the traumas they've been through, or the circumstances they're in right now, and it's like, talk about reality TV. It's like the most fascinating. People are so interesting to me, and I'm constantly fascinated by whatever's occurring in my sessions. Oh, just such deep gratitude. Thank you so much, Keith, for having me on your show again. I always love being here. I love talking to you and connecting with your people. So just thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Any final message, anything at all that you can offer those empaths who might be not finding their ways easy? And by the way, everyone, I had my mic muted. I have so much technology. So let me repeat my question. I was asking Lisa to share a final thought with us. Anything you would like to offer those new, old empaths, but new to the fact that, is this what it's called? I'm an empath and I'm highly sensitive. How do just anything you'd like to offer us that we can maybe take and apply in our life to make the transition from being depressed to one being a joyful being?
I think the most important thing is to remember that it's a gift. That it's a built-in diagnostic tool. It's like having a built-in MRI, X-ray machine built into you, so you can feel what's going on in somebody who may not be able to tell you. Empaths are often drawn to working with children, animals, elderly people, people who can't always communicate what's going on, and that to remember the gifts is the gift of love, and to bring the gift of love into the world in whatever way we do it. It's worth all of the work we have to do to line ourselves up and to be strong and grounded and set boundaries and all that stuff we have to do is worth it, because the world needs all the healers it can get. And we're here on a mission to help other people, and that's the most important thing.
Everybody in the forums are really enjoying you. Robert says you're very well spoken. Well, of course she is. She's on my show. She wouldn't be on my show. But you're very well spoken. And Dana and everybody on YouTube is just like raving because you're pressing buttons, because you know what it feels like. And in your knowing what it feels like, you're using those buttons, softly depressing them and moving energy in them. So thank you. You're welcome here anytime.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Keith. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, lovely. Everyone, Lisa Campion, tonight we've been speaking about her brand new bestseller, One Day Old, #1 bestseller at that, Energy Healing for Empaths. My name is Keith Anthony Blanchard. Thursday night, I'm going to have, oh my God, I don't remember. I should have set it up, but I didn't. I had some technology crashes and some upgrades. Every time Windows upgrades, I have to go through all my defaults, and it gets tiring. But I'm also not in the muscle memory of doing Center of Light Radio, but I am now back. So it's going to take a while for me to get into my groove. I do appreciate you. Always remember, you love beyond measure. And until you understand that, anything beyond measure is not going to happen for you. Take that empathic feeling of yours that you have and turn it on yourself. That's where it needs to be. You deserve everything. And that 0 point is nothing. And in that nothing is everything. And if anything, it's possible. I love you. I'll see you soon.
You bet. I know. It's true. That's your band, right?